Hi everyone, Nathan here with ATC Cooling and Heating, and today we're going to compare the Trane XR17 heat pump with the Trane XV18 heat pump and pick a winner. If you're in the market for a new heat pump, you should listen to this video. Now both of these are modern, highly efficient heat pumps. They're really quite popular with homeowners here in eastern Tennessee and really across the United States. To be as detailed as possible, the Trane XR17 heat pump has model numbers that start with 5TWR7. It was introduced or reintroduced at the end of 2024. The Trane XV18 heat pump has model numbers that start with 5TWV8X. And it was revised for use with our 454B refrigerant also at the end of 2024. When you look at these two heat pumps, you will find that they look exactly alike. They use similar air handlers, and really the only differentiating feature is this sort of thermostat that each one is required to use. But operation of the units is very, very different. First, let's check out the overall efficiency of the units. Now, I'm going to show you efficiency with a matching air handler. The 5TEM6 variable speed air handler for the XR17 and the 5TAM-X communicating variable speed air handler for the XV18. There are a number of different air handlers and furnaces that will also work with each of these heat pumps. And in each air handler or furnace family, there are different sizes that could also work. So the efficiency that I'm going to show you is very specific to these models that I've chosen. Now, as you can see from the chart on the screen, the XR17 models, they all achieve roughly 17 SEER efficiency in the cooling mode, and the XV18, those achieve about 18 SEER efficiency. So certainly advantage here to the XV18 on cooling efficiency with about a 6% improvement over the XR17. But the heating efficiency tells a slightly different tale. The XR17 achieves 9 to 9.4 HSPF, while the XV18 only gets to 8.5 HSPF. Now that's a modest difference of about 10%, but still noticeable point to the XR17 on heating efficiency. You will also see on this chart a column for percent at 5. That is my shorthand for heat output at 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Now many lesser heat pumps only make 45 to 50% of their rated heat output when the outdoor temperatures fall to just 5 degrees Fahrenheit. But both of these inverter-driven units do much better. At 73%, the XR17 is pretty good, and at 76%, the XV18 is even better. This means that both units will be far less likely to engage the emergency heat, which is electric strip heaters, even when the temperatures go really frigid. Slight advantage for the XV18, so it's currently 2 points for the XV18 and 1 point for the XR17. Now pause here for a moment. If you live in a geography where the temperatures regularly fall below 20 degrees at night, one of these heat pumps is a much, much better choice than a standard single stage 14 or 15 SEER model. Of course, if you have a natural gas furnace backing up your heat pump, a dual fuel application, that doesn't matter so much as the furnace takes over when it gets really cold. Okay, let's talk operation now. When these units run, they're pretty quiet, but the XV18 is considerably quieter than the XR17. And I can quote all sorts of decibel ratings at different output levels and different feet away from the unit, but in the real world, the XV18 is the clear winner. I've listened to both, I've stood beside them, and as impressive as the XR17 is overall, the XV18 often runs at such a low speed that it's just extremely quiet. This makes a big difference when your heat pump sits next to your deck or your patio, but perhaps not so much of a difference if your unit is on the back side of the house where no one frequents. The score is now 3 points for the XV18 and 1 point for the XR17. Now the XR17 is an inverter-driven heat pump with two general operating speeds. Call them low and high, with low being about 60% of capacity and high meaning full on at 100% of capacity. The XV18 is also an inverter-driven heat pump, but it can vary its output from 25% all the way up to 100% of total capacity with hundreds of steps in between. I've drawn this out for you here. On the diagram, we've got output from 0% to 100%, and this is just showing you over the course of a day. The XR XR17 is going to come on and it'll run at 60% or at 100%. Those are the only really two choices that it's got. Whereas the XV18, it can come on at 25%, but then it can start varying its output as it needs to through the day as it gets warmer and warmer, and then coming back down by the time evening falls. And that's the difference between a two-stage unit, the XR17, and a full variable output unit, the XV18. Now the end result of this technology is that since the 18 is constantly adjusting its output to conditions, it just runs longer and quieter. Does a good job removing humidity. The XR17 with two stages is good, but the XV18 is just better. 4 points for the XV18 now, 1 point for the XR17. Next up we have installation efficiency. The XV18 is a communicating system, and that means that the air handler, the heat pump, and the thermostat, all three of those are in constant contact with a digital language going through the wires. This makes the system a little bit fussy about the kind of thermostat wire that gets used. Patched up breaks in the line, a wire running through a really hot attic, a really long wire, too small of a gauge for the wire, all those things can contribute to communication issues with the XV18. The XR17, on the other hand, is a 24-volt system. No digital signal. The thermostat either says low stage, high stage, or off. Pretty simple. Point there to the XR17. Now, because the XV18 is a communicating system, it requires the use of Trane's T-Link 360 thermostat. You can't use a Honeywell thermostat, or an ecobee, or a Nest, or any other thermostat. It has to use Trane's special proprietary thermostat. The T-Link 360 by Trane is an excellent thermostat, touchscreen, Wi-Fi capable, all sorts of good stuff, but not having a choice, well, that's less good. And the T-Link 360 is expensive. It's really about 3 times the cost of a traditional thermostat. The score is now 4 points for the XV18, 3 points to the XR17. Next up, I'd like to talk a little bit more about humidity mitigation because it's a really big deal when it comes to your air conditioner or heat pump. The summers are hot, and when they're sweaty too, it's just twice as bad. The XR17's 2 stages of operation is really good, and the system will run a fair amount of the time. Now, any heat pump or air conditioning, while it's running, it's pulling out humidity. But when it turns off, having satisfied the thermostat, well, all of that stops and no humidity is addressed. The longer the runtime, the better. Now, I've drawn this out here for you, and we looked at this a minute ago. This is the XR17 duty cycling on and off through the time here. And you can see that there's fairly big chunks of time when that unit's not running at all. And of course, when it's not running, there's no humidity being removed. Later in the day, it might go up to high fire, which is 100% of capacity, and it's running at high some of the time, maybe back down to low here, and then back up to high. All these blanks, though, no humidity being addressed. The XR18, the red line here, you can see that thing is varying its output starting, let's say, at 8 a.m. It may duty cycle a little before that, but starting at 8 a.m., it's going up and up and up and up. And by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you may have reached the highest temperature for the day. It's running near 100% capacity. And it's running, you see this, all of this time. There's no period in the day here where that unit shuts off. And because it's always running from 25% capacity up to 100% capacity, it just does a much better job of removing indoor humidity. Point here to the XV18. Alright, now here comes the big one. Price. As you can imagine, the XV18 is a bit more expensive than the XR17. Now, every Trane dealer will be a little different, but for an installed price, using, for example, a 3-ton common size system, and that special thermostat that the XV18 needs, the XV18 ends up at about $3,000 more than the XR17. So, another big point here to the XR17. The final score is 5 points for the XV18, 4 points for the XR17, a very close race. Both of these are excellent units. But the end result, I think that's more a matter of priorities. If you want your system to be as quiet as possible, choose the XV18. Do you live in a really humid environment? Well, then you may also want to choose the XV18. Do you have an old thermostat wire, difficult to reach or replace? Well, maybe the XR17 is your best choice. If budget's a big concern, the XR17. So for my money though, the XV18 I think is just a fabulous choice. I love how quiet and how efficient that unit is. Its operation, running much of the day, is really unobtrusive. You'll hardly ever know it's doing its job. You'll just be comfortable. So if you have any questions on Trane heat pumps or really anything HVAC, leave a comment here or contact us through our website at atcservice.com. Thanks for watching.